Hi Santo, here's your lesson on basic shakuhachi technique. Here is your shinzan. Now your shinzan is perfectly in tune to what traditional shakuhachi players expect out of a fine instrument. If you're playing in C sharp, this is a 1.8 flute. If you're playing in C sharp, you're playing in a very, simple, basic beginner's breath with the beginner's breath velocity. So experienced players have to exercise their diaphragm and lip muscles to blow at a stronger velocity and with much more support so that the sound rings out with overtones and thus is brighter and sharper. For example, here is I can't finger all of these, but I just want to show you my tuner. Now I don't know if you can see, this is the thumb hole open, and if you're playing in C sharp, it's like this. It's quite a nice tone. Now, if you're playing music on your own, that's fine. If you want to start studying and play at the level of Japanese musicians for shakuhachi, you need to start blowing with more controlled embouchure, a smaller embouchure to create a smaller jet stream and thus higher velocity, which will create a bigger sound. I'll start with your breath, and then I'll blow into slight kari, but not even blowing harder, just adjusting, and it's going to go into D, and you can see this. So that I'm not doing much. Maybe I am, but since I've been playing for 20 years, it doesn't feel like much. But for a beginner, maybe it is a lot to blow harder, and it might feel like when blowing kari, to blow sharp is a great thing. But it's after you practice it for a week or two, it probably would seem like you're not doing much to blow sharper. So let's talk about breathing, which is basically the most important thing for a shakuhachi player, and actually for any living animal on this planet. Breathing is very important. So basically, we ought to take an inhale and an exhale, and even I sort of dramatize that. You can hear me, but it's usually quite short and brief. But shakuhachi and other woodwind players have to fill up their diaphragm, their stomach, their chest, and then into their throat. So let's try that. Let's just take a deep breath with your mouth and your nose open and fill up your diaphragm, your chest, and your throat. Let's try that together. Then you just release it. Let's do that again. Now that's kind of me again overemphasizing the breathing, but you want to do it in the most relaxed way as possible. When you fill this up, this 3-part diaphragm or breath right into the top of your throat, do that in the most relaxed way as possible and just let it out normally. Let's try that again. So you may notice that the exhalation is only like 2 seconds long. Now, for those beginners who come to the shakuhachi, they start to blow like, and they put the flute up to their lips, and it's. You don't want to play the shakuhachi like that. Basically, what you want to do is release the breath onto the shakuhachi. For example, if we do what we just did with our inhalation, and you exhale right there, you're going to get some kind of sound, but it's a gentle sound. Let's try that. Now that tone, if you notice, was longer than our simple exhalation because we held the embouchure, and we created an embouchure and we made it small as opposed to just releasing the sound. We made an embouchure, which is pinching this little opening right here. And that closing the embouchure is like an aperture of a camera. You close it, You get a little light in there, and it makes things more focused. So that's the same thing with our breath. When we close our lips and our embouchure, it makes the breath more focused, thus creating a higher velocity, making a brighter sound, without blowing harder. So now, what is the shape of the embouchure? I like to think of it as the like a Buddha's smile. Very gentle, simple. Not a big smile, just enough to pull your lips against your teeth and back. So if you have dimples, you want to look for those dimples. Now, you just want to exhale that small little embouchure right through the opening, right in the middle, right there, with your lips still against your teeth. Not one, for example, over the other, not your top lip over or your bottom lip out. So they're both even, like this, like a smile against your teeth. So you want to inhale and you just want to release the air right through that tiny little opening, like the opening the size of a grain of rice. Let's try that. So we're going to inhale all the way up here and just release it through the smile. Here we go. Now, without blowing, that was about 10 seconds long. And this is what it might sound like. So I'm just releasing the breath through my little Buddha smile embouchure. So that's without blowing. Now, that's where you should start your Shakuhachi practice. Gentle inhalation that fills up your diaphragm, and a long exhalation. And this is very closely related to meditative breathing. So, let's try that again. If you have your flute, you want to hold it in your standard flute position with your middle fingers between the bottom hole and the bottom two holes and the top two holes. And you just want to inhale quickly, gently, in a very relaxing manner, right up into the top of your throat. And just exhale right through your Buddha smile with the little grain of rice opening right in the middle. Now, before I start that, I want to just talk about placement. You want this end, this around, right behind the corner of this Uchi-guchi, around the circle to the other side, covered, like so, with this part of your lip. Now, if you have the back opened by chance here, it's not going to make a sound. That has to be completely sealed, so that little gap right there is open. And that'll catch the air. So, proper placement is you smile, you place that front line, the dip right across, and then you just pull it down about 1/4 of an inch so that there's a gap. Right now there's no gap. If I blow, nothing's catching the sound. Once I open the hole, that little bit of opening the hole catches the sound and will make the tone. So let's do our deep inhalation, deep and quick and gentle. And then we're going to exhale, just exhale right onto that Uchi-guchi with all holes open, including the thumb. Here we go. Now, a very good exercise I like to give my students are long tone exercises, and that's the perfect thing to give you a solid foundation on how to start your Shakuhachi practice, because basically you can make a tone. If you can make a tone with your whole exhalation, you have all that room to handle the tone and to create it and to manipulate it, to massage it, to make it the sound that you want to hear. So, let me just touch on that. The sound you want to hear might be different from the sound that your teacher wants to hear. Now this is the sound that you want to hear. But if you want to play at a 1.8 D pitch, A equals 440, this is the sound that you should strive for. Of course, it won't last as long because you have to blow or handle a little more. Your breath is going to release quicker, so you don't have as long time to handle the tone. So eventually, if you do that every day on just the open holes, you start to put your hose down, your finger holes down one by one. Once you're confident with that solid tone, every hole is going to just pop out at you without adjustments, for example. In the beginning, you might play like this. But as you work harder, so it can all happen on one breath. Moving the fingers is easy. Blowing, handling the tone is difficult. So to move up the scale, you just push your lips in, bear down on your embouchure just a bit, like closing the aperture on the camera, and you'll get the second octave. This flute is like many flutes. If it's a little tricky on kan no ro, second octave kan with all holes closed, you just need to crack that a little bit. So, but in terms of being in tune, it's perfectly in tune. So what we talked about earlier about blowing your long tone practice, once you do it every day, you get stronger and stronger like an athlete jumping hurdles. You can only jump a 3 feet hurdle now, but when you get stronger and stronger, you're going to go another foot in a month, maybe another foot in 6 months, and in a year you might be able to play in D. So that's the difference from Now, there are many ways to play the shakuhachi. If you play the shakuhachi on your own terms, just having a conversation with the flute, you are only limited by your experience. But if you want to play it to the level of students or teachers and professional musicians, you need to develop your strength in your diaphragm, in your lips, and your ears, in understanding what a good shakuhachi or a good, I would say, contemporary shakuhachi sound is, which is quite strong, robust, with overtones and a complex sound. The early beginning shakuhachi sounds are very more simple, flute-like sounds with a very much stronger emphasis on the fundamentals. So there's not many harmonics or partials, and it sounds mellower. So people who come to the shakuhachi want to play mellower sounds aren't necessarily playing up to the, well, I don't want to say standards of shakuhachi music, but maybe standards of what the contemporary musicians are doing today to push the sound into a bigger place so that they can compete with orchestral instruments. Thanks for listening.